Okay, the objective of this video is to calculate the area and circumference of some circles this time around. So let's have a look at the first example. So we want to calculate the area and circumference of the circle up to 1 decimal place. Okay, the length across the whole circle is called the diameter. So I'm given the diameter in this question, which is 8 centimetres. Okay, so the diameter, the bit across the whole circle, 8 centimetres. Now we also need to find an area, the radius of the circle, which is just half the diameter. So if I divide the diameter by 2, our radius for this example is 4 centimetres. So the next thing you need to know for area and circumference of circles is just 2 formulas. Area of a circle is pi times the radius squared, and diameter times pi will give you the circumference. So it's just 2 formulas that you need to know. So for this example, let me bring up a calculator. I'm going to work out the area of the circle first. Now to get the pi button, I need to press shift, and then it's the button in the middle at the bottom, times 10 to the power of x is what it says on it. And that'll give me the pi value on the calculator. So I'm doing pi multiplied by the radius squared. So in this case, 4, and then I can get the square button by pressing to the power of 2. Press equals, we get 16 pi. Now we don't want the answer in terms of pi, so what we need to do is press this button here which says SD on it, and it'll give us the full value for that calculation. So we've got 50.26548246. Now we want that to 1 decimal place. So to round it to 1 decimal place, I need to look at the second decimal place, and if it's 5 or more, I'm going to round 2 up. So in this case, the 2 does need to be rounded up. So my final answer for the area (50.3), and because it's an area, my units are centimetres squared. Okay, so we'll look at the circumference next, which is pi times the diameter. So if we go back to the calculator, ignore what we did before, shift the button in the middle to get my pi. My diameter of the circle is 8, so I just need to multiply pi by 8 and press equals. Again, I've got it in terms of pi, 8 pi, and I don't want that, so I'll press the SD button and I get the full calculation there. So 25.132744123. I want to round that to 1 decimal place, so I'll look at the second decimal place, ask if it's 5 or more. It's a 3, so this time I'm going to keep the 0.1 exactly the same. So my circumference to 1 decimal place (25.1), and this time I'm working in centimetres, so it's a measure of length rather than a measure of area. So the diameter times pi gives us circumference, and that is a measure of length, it's the distance around the circle. Whereas pi times r squared gives you an area, it needs to be in centimetres squared. Okay, so let's take a look at another example. So this is example number 2. I'm going to write the 2 formulas that I need to know. So pi times r squared gives me an area, and pi times d, which is the diameter, is going to give me the circumference. This question here is slightly different because this time I've been given the radius of the circle to start with, which is 5 millimetres. So then, knowing the radius, I need to work out the diameter by multiplying that value by 2. So the diameter of the circle is going to be 10 millimetres. So So now I know those two things, I can just substitute those values into the formula for the area and the formula for circumference. So let's look at the area first. What I need to do is multiply pi, so shift from the middle row at the bottom is going to give me that pi value. I need to times it by my radius, which I know is 5 squared. So press the square button and then equals. Again, we get it in terms of pi, 25 pi, so I need to press the SD button to get the full value. 78.53981634. Okay, so then we need to round that to one decimal place. So I look at the second decimal place, which is a 3. It's less than 5, so I'm going to keep the 5 the same. So it's going to be 78.5. I'm working in millimetres, so be careful. And this one is a measure of area, so it's millimetres squared. So let's look at the circumference. That is pi times the diameter. I know my diameter is twice the radius, so it's 10. So let's get rid of the other calculation. Bring up pi and multiply that by 10. Again, we get it in terms of pi, 10 pi, but we don't want that. Press the SD button. We've got 31.41592654. So what I want to do is look at the second decimal place. It's a 1. It's less than 5, so I'm going to keep it the same, 31.4. millimetres. Okay, it's a measure of length. Circumference is the distance around the outside of a circle, so it's not going to be squared, it's just in millimetres, so watch out for the units. Okay, so you're going to get a couple of questions. Pause it before you get your answers, and then they will be revealed in a couple of seconds. The distance there, if you can't read it, is 6 metres, and the distance here that you've been given is 4 centimetres. So work out your answers, pause the video, the answers will appear after that.